When Analysis Services is installed, a service account is defined to run the Windows service. Let's take a moment to understand the security requirements for this service account. First, what kind of account can we use for the service account? It can be a local user account, a domain user account, or a built-in system account. The best practice is to use a domain user account. Regardless of which type of account you're using, you'll need to make sure that your data source grants permissions to this account. If you're using MoLAP or WholeApp storage, then the account only needs to have read permissions on the data source. However, if you're using RoLAP, you need to configure both read and write permissions if your cube includes aggregations, because Analysis Services will need to write to the aggregation tables during processing. When you install Analysis Services, the file system permissions should be set automatically, but in particular, the account will need access to the Backup Files folder in order to save backups. This should be done automatically, but if you have problems with backups, you'll need to make sure that the permissions are set correctly. Then last, with regard to database permissions, the service account will need DB owner permission on the database that you use to store query log tables whenever you enable query logging. This is disabled by default, by the way, and should only be turned on if you need to improve aggregations. The service account will also need DB owner permissions on the database where you're going to store write-back tables if you've enabled a cube for write-back. To make sure that all of the permissions are correct for the service as well as the file system, be sure to use SQL Server Configuration Manager if you need to change the service account or to update the password if you're using local or domain user accounts.